Hello, I'm Michael Chigani, and this is Straight Talk. With me today is Felix Chung. Now, Felix Chung, you've been here before. You are the leader of the Liberal Party, and you also represent the textiles and garment industry in the Legislative Council. Now, so much has happened in the past week. We've had Donald Trump withdrawing the Hong Kong Policy Act in response to central government introducing a national security law for Hong Kong. Before we start, let's have a look at a clip.
China has replaced its promised formula of one country, two systems with one country, one system. This is a tragedy for the people of Hong Kong, the people of China, and indeed the people of the world.
Hong Kong SAR is part of China. We are one country, and without one country, there isn't any basis to talk about two systems.
Now, two different views. Teresa Chang, the Justice Secretary, said, we are one country, and without one country, there cannot be two systems, right? Donald Trump says this is a tragedy for Hong Kong, this national security law, and he's withdrawn this Hong Kong Policy Act, which gives Hong Kong special trading status. You're a businessman. I think you understand this law very well. Is it a tragedy for Hong Kong?
Well, certainly I agree with Teresa Chang, what Teresa Chang just said. I mean, Hong Kong is one country, two systems. Well, Hong Kong is part of China. Donald Trump can say whatever he wants to say, but we have to look at the reality. Hong Kong is still one of the fiercest cities in the world. We are using the capitalist systems. We still have our own rule of law, our own fiscal policy, monetary policy. But there's no change. So I don't agree with what Donald Trump just said. One country, one system. We have another system compared to China.
But do you think that this will continue? Because we don't have the details of the new national security law yet, right? I don't think it'll affect Hong Kong's financial system. I don't think it'll affect the other things that you just mentioned. But you don't think it could affect personal freedoms?
Well, I mean, freedom. Well, in Hong Kong, according to the basic law, we have all the freedom of whatever, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of demonstration, and all this type of freedoms. I don't see the four category that is going to impose by the central government on the Hong Kong security, the national security law, will affect us too much. Especially, they are just imposing four categories. Have you think about the Article 23 in 2003? There are 7 different categories. So the central government is right now given up some rooms to do the legislation ourselves on the other categories. So if you think about, I think 99.9% of the Hong Kong people will not touch secessions, subversion,
secession, foreign interference, terrorism,
that sort of thing. Who would touch that?
Well, right. You say that the 4 areas are less than the 7 areas previously in 2003, and that you don't think that those 4 areas will affect personal freedoms. One of those areas, in fact, all of those areas are very widely written in that you don't really know what is or what is not correct. We don't have the details yet.
No.
But subversion can mean anything. In mainland China, subversion can mean a wide variety of things. If that is applied to Hong Kong, Falun Gong will not be able to exist in Hong Kong. They go out there and they say down with Communist China. That would not be allowed under the new law, right? So that would be a loss of personal freedoms in Hong Kong.
As you said, we do not know the details yet. Let's wait and see the details. Of course, we can separate it into two ways. Mm-hmm. For example, if the law is written based on common law background, I mean, then have, for example, how to implement that who is the organizations that going to do the enforcement, whether the enforcement is still using the police, Hong Kong police, are we still using the Hong Kong legal systems to do the judgment? I mean, that is very important. I mean, if the central government is going to set up another organization, the National Security Agency,
They are going to do that. They've said
in
that.
Hong Kong. Are they just coming here to do certain part of the job, certain investigation, and not doing the enforcement? I mean, we need to know all this detail before we can do a final
That's
judgment.
why I say, Felix, without those details, you just said that you don't think personal freedoms will be lost, 99% of the people will not be affected. You cannot say that without knowing the details,
Well,
right?
certainly, yes. But,
You know what
but
I mean?
this is just from the present situations, right? The personal assessments. So, of course, I mean, if we finally knows that there is a special agent to do the enforcement, implementations, then the story will be different.
Well, you know, they have said, national security and intelligence people, agents, will be supervising and guiding the Hong Kong police force. Those are their words, okay? So the Hong Kong police force should be supervising and guiding itself, don't you think?
Well, as from the government, they said the Hong Kong police force do not have this sort of experience on doing this sort of things. If you think about in the British colonial time, the British or Hong Kong government have the political unit here within the police unit. So of course we didn't know that actually what they did in the past. But I mean, this is the reality. Certainly will make a lot of the Hong Kong people have some worry. But I mean, we cannot make any judgments right now until we know the details.
The British had a special branch, yes. They looked at it, but then the special branch was answerable to the police commissioner, who was answerable to the governor, who was answerable to Parliament, a democracy. Now you say Hong Kong police doesn't have that kind of experience, but you've got people who may have experience about terrorism or interference, foreign interference from mainland China, but their experience is derived from imprisoning 1 million Uyghurs. Do you want that kind of experience in Hong Kong?
Well, I mean, that sort of 1 million Uyghurs, we do not know any details at all. So
I think it's been very well documented, Felix.
Well, there are so many documents or articles saying about that. But I mean, personally myself, I haven't had the chance to see that in real, in Tibet or whatever. So I mean, I just cannot comment on that. So you know, there are so many news from the Western world.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you want special courts in Hong Kong? Because there is one view that special courts should be set up in Hong Kong to try people under this national security law, and foreign judges should not be allowed to try these suspects. Do you agree with that?
No, so personally, I don't agree with that. I don't think we need that. I mean, we certainly need to use the common law systems and use our legal system to do all the judgment. So I don't think we need
So
that.
you disagree?
Especially that will make a lot of uncertainty or confidence issue in Hong Kong if there is a special court which is using the Chinese legal system or Chinese law to do it. I mean, that will certainly affect the confidence and certainty.
Well, there is an argument that since it is the Chinese law being drafted in Beijing, Hong Kong judges would not be able to understand this.
But what I've heard, they're drafting based on the common law system.
How did they know how to draft the common law? They have no idea. Should the Beijing government, I mean, this law is now a done deal for sure. It'll pass, right? We all know that. Shouldn't the central government send people over to Hong Kong and ask common law experts to help them draft this law rather than doing it there?
Or maybe they invite the common law experts from Hong Kong to go to Beijing to travel.
Either way, right? I mean, but they've not done that.
But we do not know anything about that.
They haven't
We're
done
just
that.
making assumptions. So
If they have
just
done
wait
that, they
and
would have
see.
said it.
Just wait and see. I mean, we cannot just saying something we do not know, and we do not have any details about that.
Okay, Felix, now I think I have 1 minute left. When this law is passed, as a businessman, the Policy Act will be withdrawn. Well, it has been withdrawn. I know Hong Kong doesn't export that much to the US, right?
No.
So from that aspect, it's not going to hurt Hong Kong much, like Financial Secretary said. But what about Hong Kong's image and its financial center?
Well, initially I didn't expect Trump to have that big step. I thought he would just impose or implement what they just passed last year, the Hong Kong Democracy and Human Rights Act, which just have some sanctions to some political leaders or the government leaders, and then have a report saying what's going on in Hong Kong. Then the next step, they might consider to revoke the Hong Kong Policy Act, but they just go directly to revoke the Hong Kong Policy Act. Well, if you're talking about just tariff, as you said, Hong Kong do not have too much thing to export.
I have to interrupt just for a moment. See you soon. Don't go away. Thanks for staying with us. This is Straight Talk. With me today is Felix Chung. Felix Chung, you're the leader of the Liberal Party, and you represent the textiles and garment industry in the Legislative Council. You're a businessman. Now, as you were saying, I'm sorry I interrupted for the break. You were saying that as for tariffs, Hong Kong would not be that much affected. Even if under this, Hong Kong will come under the same tariffs that the U.S. charges mainland China, which is quite high. But we don't export a lot to the U.S., right?
No, we don't. The difference between Hong Kong and China before U.S. revoked the Hong Kong special status is, in the last 2 years, when U.S. imposed additional tariff to China, Hong Kong is not affected, it's separate. But now have the U.S. revoked the special status. So anything, especially tariff, imposed by U.S. to China, Hong Kong will have the same rate of tariff. So Hong Kong is affected in that way. So of course, Hong Kong do not have too much thing to export directly to U.S. So it won't be affected too much.
But there's also the issue of technology transfer,
yes,
which people say could be more damaging for Hong Kong, right?
Yes.
If the U.S. decides not to allow technology transfer, it doesn't allow it to mainland China, but it does allow it to Hong Kong. High tech coming to Hong Kong, which is useful for Hong Kong companies and so on. What happens if that stops?
Well, especially the directions of Hong Kong is going to the finance and technologies, the innovations and technologies. So the only thing I worry about is whether the U.S. will do something to affect the financial market in Hong Kong. The other thing, of course, is the technologies. In the past, U.S. trust Hong Kong very much.
That's correct.
Yeah, they just trust and they transfer whatever we need. They just give it to us, especially
if that stops,
the intellectual property, everything. But now, if the U.S. don't trust Hong Kong anymore, they just stop it.
Then how does that affect Hong Kong?
Well, especially China want Hong Kong to be, the Great Bay Area Innovation and Technology Center.
Right.
Then it might have the chance not be able to do it.
But then, what you say is they may not be able to do it, but people like the Financial Secretary, people like the Commerce Secretary, people like the Constitutional Affairs Secretary, they all say, so what? We can live without it. We don't need it.
Yeah, of course, we can live without anything. But then we can get technologies from the other country, from Europe, from Japan, from Korea, whatever, wherever.
Then why worry?
Well, still, U.S. U.S. and China are the biggest two trading partner in Hong Kong. So the two big guys having fight, Hong Kong certainly will be losing in certain way. And the trade, well, the GDP or the trade that Hong Kong is doing with U.S. is about 25%, which is a lot, 25%. On the other hand, there are so many U.S. business communities in Hong Kong. Certainly, what the U.S. government do will affect the American business community in Hong Kong too. Again, that will involve confidence issue, uncertainty issues. So, I mean, all the business sector, if they want to do business in one place, they absolutely want to have a certain environment.
Are we going to become, just like people say, another mainland Chinese city eventually? Is that the aim of the central government?
That may be happen after 2047.
You don't think it's, I mean,
it won't happen before 2047.
Are we moving towards that?
I don't see that at this moment. Well, especially we still have the two systems, as mentioned earlier in the program. We still have.
Trump says it's just one country, one system.
Well, don't trust him. Don't trust him. Well, put it this way. I mean, the State Secretary of United States, Mr. Pompeo, saying that he stands with Hong Kong people.
Right.
Right. On the other hand, the President Trump say, I want to sanction Hong Kong. I want to punish Hong Kong. How come that you stand with you, then you punish you at the same time?
Well, I
so
think
which one is true? Of course.
I think what they're saying is that, you know, a lot of people, I think, misunderstand this. You stand with Mike Pompeo, said stand with Hong Kong, and Donald Trump says, yeah, one country, one system. But they have also said that whatever action they take will be targeted, very targeted, so that it won't hurt Hong Kong people as a whole.
Do you think that will?
I don't know.
No, certainly it will hurt Hong Kong people. I mean, have they sanctioned your economy? If they do not allow you to do this or allow you to do that,
but the
certainly will hurt Hong Kong people.
But the financial secretary said it won't. He says, we're okay. We don't have to worry. We're fine. We don't need your business. That's what he said.
Well, of course, the financial secretary is not a businessman. He doesn't need the business. We need the business, right?
Okay, you know what? The Constitutional Affairs Minister was actually quite, I don't know what word to use, but he just said a couple of days ago, he says, I'm not going to go to America. I've got no property in America. I've got no business in America. And so I don't really care. Come and get me. In other words, I'm not afraid. And he also said, I'm not going to go to Canada in case they extradite me from Canada. Now, I don't know whether a minister should use language like that, but then he did. Are you worried too?
Well, personally, I don't. Personally, I don't. Because
you just supported the national security law.
No, personally, I don't. Because I have no assets in the United States.
But you do business.
I do business with them. But, well, let's see the list of the people he's going to sanction. All right? We again, just like we in the first half of the program discussing about the national security law, we do not have the details.
We don't have the details.
We don't have the name list. So it's difficult to comment. But of course, certain businessmen that have, well, for example, the executive member of the administrations, a lot of them are businessmen and have a lot of business in the United States.
I know, and a lot of Hong Kong people have their kids living in America with American passports.
Right?
They have homes in America, their bank accounts in America.
But they said it's targeting on the government leaders, and those people, those people that have involved in this national security law and passed that particular law.
Exactly. We don't know who they're talking about that was involved. A lot of people were involved in the security law. I don't even know whether involvement actually means support, because you support it. You just said you support the national security law, right?
You know, a lot of the local business community actually
they
don't mind. They don't mind to have this, especially if you see there's so many riots happening in the last 2 weeks after the COVID-19's been releasing a little bit in Hong Kong. I mean, all the local business community have lost 60, 70, 90% of the business. And now is the
Due
time
to the virus, not
due to the social unrest, maybe 20, 30%. The COVID-19 then go up to 60, 70%. Right now is the time that to be more peaceful, and they want to open up the business again and do some business, but suddenly the riot come back.
But don't you
Right.
think, Felix, that if this national security law was not there, there may not be protests, but with it there, it may even generate more protests?
Well, I do not know exactly, is that an excuse, another excuse, or just a continuous from the extradition bill that happened last year? Because there is an election in September. So a lot of them just come out to keep on making the noise for the election in September.
Okay, I've got 2 minutes. You mentioned the extradition bill. Hand on heart, Felix, would any of this have happened if it wasn't for Carrie Lam's extradition bill? If she had not introduced an extradition bill, there would not have been protests. It would not have come to where central government says we need to have a national security law imposed on Hong Kong. It all started with Carrie Lam's extradition bill, didn't it?
In certain way, yes. Without the extradition bill, they might not have social unrest.
There will not have. It was that triggered
right?
it.
But for the Article 23, which is the governments really want to have, and we can see the present government is unable or do not have the capacity to do it. Whether the central government will still wait for that, I'm not sure. But certainly, because of the social unrest, and there is so much noise to talk about Hong Kong independence, that's make the central government to step in.
I've just got 1 minute. Very quickly, Taiwan says it'll make it easier for Hong Kong people to emigrate there. The UK government has said that BNO passport holders now have a pathway to citizenship in the UK. They can go and live there for a year and renewable every year, and that will create a pathway. Do you think there will be an exodus?
Well, this is a choice for some people. I don't know. I don't know whether, again, this is something announced by the Taiwanese government and the British government. When they are going to do it, have no timeline and do not have the timetable.
All right.
Right. So again,
Okay,
we
I've got to
cannot
end it.
Right.
Thanks for watching. See you next time. Good evening.